Gidi Cohen is the CEO and co founder of Bonfy.AI, a platform focused on AI data security for AI agents, co pilots, and AI enabled workflows. With that, Gidi, we're thrilled to have you at the live event today, and I am very much looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you. And the pleasure is all mine. So, we are going to talk today about the challenges and needs for a proper AI native data security solutions, basically focusing on why organizations must rethink their use of Copilot, AI agents, assistants, custom applications in the context of data security. So, let's start from the beginning. The challenge with the AI is that the risk related to content creation, surfacing, resurfacing, sending, is that it's growing exponentially with innovation and adoption of AI, while humans are getting out of the loop. So if you think about different examples, like a copilot summarizing an email thread and surfaces very confidential information, or new employees using an external AI tool that analyzes the content that includes a lot of sensitive business data, or an AI agent combines and surfaces information from data sources we were not sure, we did not know that this agent is actually that can access and summarize and read and maybe take some actions on. So basically, the challenge is that the human context that was used until recently for every content creation, sharing, sending, etc., is actually getting out of the loop. And sensitive data is now being used in ways that organizations never intended to and are not aware of. So why all of that is so critical? Because without business context, our claim is that you cannot understand content accurately. And when you cannot do that, enforcement is actually lacking. So let's take this example of an email that was written by Raul, just to say, for the sake of example, working in some insurance company that is using ChatGPT or like to craft a nice email sent to Alex and John. When you're running some, let's say, typical data loss prevention, data classification tools, you are looking for different patterns. And sometimes they classify them correctly, sometimes incorrectly. But that's about that looks like a very benign type of email. But let's assume for a second that magically business context was in place, like happened before the world of Gen AI. So humans have a lot of knowledge about customers, contacts, what they can share, what they cannot share. So let's just take this example. So in this example, what we see here is that given this business context of different people, companies, the relationship, first of all, we find different entities or reference to different people like Alex and John and another John and Clara. The challenge in this email, now that you see it, is that we sent information to the wrong person. So we have a major data leakage here. And we have a major privacy violation because we shared the home address of a person in California, violating CCPA. And we have some regulatory exposure, sharing information about policyholders and giving improper notice, just for the sake of example, and even referring to the wrong spouse. So all of that information and all of those violations and risks could never be found without the proper business context or the human context that could have been applied to this type of email. So when we're saying business context, we're not talking about machine signals. We're talking about the entities, people, agents, customers, and the like, and the relationship. So all of that is very, very critical to understand content. In this case, it's email, but it can be AI agents communication, can be data classification, can be a lot of different use cases, but understanding content in context. Why it's so critical? Because when you don't understand content accurately, so when you have low accuracy, that leads to high friction in organizations. Think about, let's say, blocking 20% of the emails that your agents are generating or misclassifying information. No one is going to use those systems. And when you don't use them, you don't have enforcement and no risk reduction. So what's actually really needed here? What's needed is a context-aware layer that fills the gaps that humans leave behind, connecting dots between the data risks, like customer trust, like what we showed in the example of the email a couple of slides ago, privacy issues, unacceptable AI use, regulatory compliance, IP leakage, other sensitive events on one end, And the workflows and systems that are being adopted by organizations like AI workspaces, by Claude, the OpenAI, others, copilots, AI-enabled SaaS, communication channels, AI assistants, and many others. That's basically what's needed, the context-aware control layer. Why is that so important in the context of AI? It's important because in the case of AI-enabled systems, data is flowing in a two-dimensional way. It's flowing west to east, so across systems and data flows. Think about, let's say you are deploying some cloud enterprise and you set up a connector that connects to your Microsoft 365 environment or your Google Drive. So there's a data source that now this AI agents or AI workspace can access pretty freely under the user credentials. So that's the west side. The east side is the out of that. You might have an agent that automatically summarizes emails and send them out, or responds to customer inquiries and others. So there's output channel as well. But that's not the only dimension, right? West east is one dimension, but north south is another one, where users are using systems. Let's say sales person using some sales AI agent to support, let's say, customer inquiries, which are using data sources that we just talked about. So this communication between the user to the AI system can have a bidirectional opportunity for leakage of sensitive data. AI system by itself is connected to other type of systems, like let's say MCP server, calling different tools that are going to augment or supplement whatever the AI system or AI agent knows by itself. So data is flowing in a lot of different direction. And definitely what's needed is to take what we just talked about, right, the context-aware control layer, and apply it in all of those directions. Because each one of them could be a source of misuse of data, data contamination or poisoning, information leakage, privacy violation, compliance issue, and the like. So at the end of the day, what a control layer of AI data must do, it actually needs to deal with three different elements that are complementing each other. One, it needs to understand your data. Again, take the example of the email that just showed before. It needs to understand where you have sensitive data, what are the topics, forbidden topics or not, or sensitive topics that are being mentioned in every piece of content. Think about the west-east, north-south type of traffic that we just talked about. It needs to identify policy relevant signals, like do we have a lot of PIIs that we typically don't send or share or train or learn in this type of context. So understanding the elements of the data. Second thing it needs to do is to understand the business relationships and context. So it's not enough to understand PII, because PII in many cases can be used in the right way. If I'm sending a person, let's say John's PII, probably it's fine. If I'm sending to the wrong John, like the example we gave earlier, that's not good. That's a privacy violation. So understanding the business relationships and the context between the people inside the organization, outside the organization, customers, what do we know about them? It can be agents, not just humans, the topics, permissions to being used. All of that is important to put together in order to understand the content in the context of the organization, the do's and don'ts. And the last piece, which is very important, again, referring to my west, east, north, south type of slide, is that enforcement has to be done in real time. Information is flowing in a lot of different ways, which are not as predictable and as consistent as before. Think about AI agent, a reasoning loop, where the agent deciding based on its logic and how the LLM was trained, and maybe it's the prompt and guidance and skills provided to it, which data to call, what kind of actions to take, what information should be surfaced back to the user that prompted, let's say, the task, what kind of information to send out. All of that is done by the agent's logic, which is, again, as I said, it's not always consistent and predictable and linear in its form. Hence, it's super important to make sure that there is both the detection of visibility of what kind of information is flowing in which direction, but also to be able to enforce controls in that regard. So basically applying guardrails before, during, and after AI use across prompt retrieval, generation, information sharing with all of the relevant type of entities. All of that is very, very important in order to make sure the organization is well protected. So the idea here with the control layer for AI data is not to block or to prevent adoption of AI. It's actually to make the AI adoption governable, auditable, and safe for the organization. When you do that, actually the AI adoption and the ROI of adopting those type of technologies will be much faster and much greater. Many people ask, okay, so how all of that is connected to AI governance because many organizations need to operationalize AI governance requirements. So I think the best way to look at AI governance from the operational perspective is in three segments of three tiers. One is the data one, which we just were talking about over the last few minutes, which is about where do we have a sensitive data, who can access it, who can transform it, how it can be shared, and again to do it both for data at rest, data in motion, but as importantly, data in use during the use of AI systems. And with the important, while data is super important, that's not the only component of AI governance. It has two other important components organizations need to relate to. One of them is the application side, where the AI governance about applications is taking a different angle on this challenge of governance. It's about which AI system do we have in place, where do we have copilots and agents? Are they allowed to use all of the tools that are made available for them? Who is using them, etc. So the application element. And the third element is the identity. What are those let's say agents are on behalf of whom the agents are actually acting, who are the users that have the authority to access data and to use different applications or tools. So all of those elements together, the data element, the application, and the identity needs to come together in the AI governance type of program for the organization. The point that we want to make about data is as follows, that if you cannot control how sensitive data is used in real time, you don't have a proper AI governance. You may control identities and you may control application access, but AI predominantly is about data. What gets in, what gets out, what is being shared, what's being surfaced by those AI systems, applications, agents, and the like. I want to leave you all with three questions that I think everyone needs to ask themselves. One is where is AI already interacting with sensitive data across the business? This, of course, super critical in order to establish any AI governance on the data layer. Which copilots, agents, and embedded AI features operate outside approved controls related to data, related to applications, related to identities? And can policy actually be enforced at the moment data is used, not just after the exposure itself, to ensure that proper risk management and AI governance practices are actually in place? That's it for today. Hopefully, you enjoyed the session.
Fantastic. Well, I think a lot of organizations that are listening in today are really focused on solving a lot of these challenges, and I think that that provides a lot of insight. But can you share a little bit more in terms of some of the organizations you've worked with over the years and some of the ways in which they've found success implementing some of these strategies?
Yes, I think that what happens is that many organizations, and I'm going to focus on the data layer, which is our focus and a lot of our experience. Many organizations, while they had some data security program in place that predated, let's say, Gen AI and AI agents, find that they need to take the dust off. And in many cases, they see that whatever they had in place, if at all, is actually not a great fit. So a lot of the basic stuff, like let's discover what kind of data we have. Let's have contextual classification labeling of it. Let's make sure that we have the right visibility for data in motion, in use, in the at rest. A lot of the basic stuff that should have been in place between us, right, already before the AI era is needed. So I would say it's similar to other domains of security that have big impact because of the adoption of AI. That's one of them, that just some of the basic stuff had to be put in place. While we all need to remember that AI also creates some new challenges. And some of the challenges are scale, the speed of how data is moving, and the fact that the AI is being created, the data is in the context of AI is being shared, created, moving in a way which is not always very predictable. So, of course, the basic, let's say, program to put in place is just the first step, but there are significant needs to adopt those type of control layers that can work at the AI scale and speed.
Well, I know that a lot of the executives listening in at the event today will have questions. So, for everyone that is on the live call today, in front of you, you have a Q&A box. Type in any questions that you have for Gidi. He will be joining us on this very next live Q&A panel coming up in just a few minutes. So, type your questions in right now, and we'll get to as many of those as we can during the live Q&A panel.